Avatar, The Last Airbender. Book 1, Episode 11. The Great Divide. Morning sun poured over the vast southern canyon as Appa soared through a sky painted orange and gold. Aang lounged on the saddle edge, eyes wide with excitement. Look, the Great Divide. The biggest canyon in the entire world. Sokka yawned and rolled over. Great. A big hole. Katara nudged him. It's a natural wonder, Sokka. Try appreciating something. Before they could argue further, a desperate voice shouted below. Help! Down here! Aang guided Appa downward. At the canyon entrance stood a tall Earth Kingdom man wrapped in green robes, leaning on a staff. I'm the canyon guide, he said breathlessly. I take refugees across safely. But right now, we've got a conflict. Behind him stood two large groups of Earth Kingdom residents, one dressed in blue, the other in red. They glared daggers at each other. The guide sighed. The Ganjin and the Zhang tribes. They've been feuding for a century. Sokka groaned. Let me guess, they both want to cross first. The guide nodded helplessly. Exactly. The feud begins. The Ganjin, dressed in elegant robes, stepped forward. We are a cultured, civilized people, their leader said. We cannot travel alongside them. On the opposite side, the Zhang leader barked. They think they're better than everyone. We're faster, stronger. We should go first. Immediately, the two tribes exploded into insults. Liars, thieves, cowards, savages. Aang threw his hands up. Stop. His voice echoed through the canyon walls. We can all go together. As the Avatar, I say so. Both tribes exchanged hesitant glances. Finally, the Ganjin leader bowed. Very well, Avatar. The Zhang leader crossed her arms. Fine, but we're not walking next to them. Aang sighed. This is going to be fun. Into the canyon. Before entering, the canyon guide warned, no food. It attracts canyon crawlers. Both tribes nodded, though their eyes shifted suspiciously. Aang, Katara, and Sokka led the way across towering stone bridges and narrow paths. The canyon stretched endlessly below, deep shadows, jagged rocks, and eerie silence. Sokka grumbled, these people are impossible. Katara sighed. They're stressed. They lost their homes. Sokka jabbed a thumb at the Zhang. They're wild. Katara scowled. Don't stereotype. Moments later, the Ganjin approached Katara. Our tribe values order and honor, their leader said proudly. Meanwhile, Sokka chatted with the Zhang. These Ganjin people think they're so perfect, their leader said. Sokka nodded. Tell me about it. Aang facepalmed. Great. Now we're picking sides. Disaster strikes. As they continued deeper, a low rumble shook the rocks. The guide shouted, Canyon crawler, get back. A massive centipede-like creature burst out of the ground, screeching, its armored body scraping against stone. The tribes panicked. Help US Avatar. Do something. Aang jumped in front. Katara, water whip. Katara unleashed water across its face while Aang blasted it back with air bending. Sokka swung his club, knocking its legs aside. But the monster lunged again. Aang summoned a powerful gust, sending dust swirling, and the crawler retreated into the earth. Everyone panted, breathless. The guide groaned. That fight injured me. My leg is sprained. I can't lead you the rest of the way. The tribes gasped. We're doomed. We'll never make it before nightfall. Aang steadied himself. No, we will lead. Secrets revealed. The journey continued, tensions rising. Katara walked with the Ganjin leader, who told her a solemn story. A century ago, a Zhang thief stole a sacred orb from our people. Our ancestor tried to deliver it peacefully, but he was attacked. Katara gasped. That's terrible. Sokka, meanwhile, listened to the Zhang version. Our ancestor saved the orb. He was defending himself when he was attacked by a Ganjin warrior. Sokka shouted across the canyon. Katara, they're twisting the story. Katara argued back. No, your side is twisting it. Aang groaned. Not this again. Guys. The truth comes out. Night fell. Despite the rules, both tribes secretly pulled out bags of food. Aang's eyes widened. You both brought food? Both tribes pointed at each other instantly. They started it. Suddenly, more canyon crawlers burst from the ground, drawn by the smell. Run! Aang shouted. Katara froze one crawler with a water whip while Sokka distracted another with his boomerang. But there were too many. Aang leapt high, wind swirling around him in a powerful spinning kick, blasting 3 crawlers off the canyon wall. The tribes huddled behind rocks. Aang screamed, "Fight together!" Finally, Ganjin and Zhang warriors charged side by side, defending each other, striking in sync, pushing the crawlers back. And at last, silence. The crawlers retreated. Exhausted, the tribes collapsed. Aang stepped forward. "This fight is exactly why your feud is pointless." Aang solves the feud. Aang thought hard, then smiled. "I remember this story. Your ancestors, Jin Wei and Wei Jin, were just kids. They weren't warriors. They played a game with the sacred orb." The tribes blinked. "A game?" Aang continued confidently. "Yes." Jin Wei dropped the ball, and Wei Jin helped him pick it up. The battle was just them arguing after the game. Both tribes stared at each other, confusion turning to embarrassment. Sokka whispered to Katara, "Is that true?" Katara whispered back, "Probably not." But it worked. The tribes bowed to each other. "Our feud ends today. We walk together from now on." Aang grinned. Balance restored. Appa arrived at sunrise, lifting everyone out of the canyon. The tribes moved forward as one, finally united. Aang sighed with relief. "Well, that was exhausting." Sokka nodded. "Let's never do that again." Katara laughed. "Agreed." And Appa soared into the blue sky toward their next adventure. Book 1, Episode 12. The Storm. The episode begins with Aang, Katara, and Sokka flying on Appa through a hot, humid sky. Sokka complains about his empty stomach, and Katara scolds him for eating their food supply earlier. Aang tries to lighten the mood, showing off tricks with Momo, but tension lingers. They arrive at a small coastal village where Sokka looks for work. A fisherman argues with his wife about the incoming storm. She begs him not to go, saying her grandmother had a vision of a terrible storm coming. The fisherman insists he must fish, or they won't survive. When he sees Aang with his glider, he snaps, accusing the Avatar of abandoning the world. Aang freezes in guilt and shame. Katara defends him, but the words clearly cut deep. Katara follows Aang outside the village, urging him to talk. Aang tells her she wouldn't understand. She gently presses him, and Aang finally reveals the beginning of the truth. He was told he was the Avatar when he was too young. This triggers the first flashback. Flashback 1, Southern Air Temple. Young Aang happily plays airball with friends. Monks watch him with pride. Gyatso smiles, watching from a balcony. Later, Gyatso and the other monks gather around Aang. They give him toys that belong to previous avatars. Aang realizes they are confirming what he suspected. He is the Avatar. Instead of celebration, Aang is overwhelmed with fear. Back in the present, Katara comforts him, saying it must have been a lot for a kid to handle. Meanwhile, on Zuko's ship, Uncle Iroh warns that a storm is forming. A crew member complains about Zuko's temper, saying the prince only thinks of capturing the Avatar and doesn't care if the crew dies. Zuko overhears, but remains silent. The tension in the crew is visible. Flashback 2, Fire Nation War Room. The episode shifts to the past. Zuko is younger, clean-faced, respectful. He sits beside Iroh in a war meeting. A general proposes sacrificing an entire division of fresh recruits to lure the Earth Kingdom into a trap. Horrified, young Zuko speaks out of turn, saying it is unfair to the soldiers. Everyone is shocked. Ozai stares at him coldly. Zuko apologizes immediately, but the general demands he be punished for disrespect. The scene ends ominously. Back with Team Avatar, the storm worsens. Aang reveals more of his painful past. After being named the Avatar, children treated him differently. Teachers separated him from his friends. Gyatso tried to protect him, but the monks believed Aang needed more responsibilities. Worse, they decided to separate him from Gyatso, his father figure. Flashback 3. Aang runs away. Young Aang overhears the decision. Terrified, he tells Gyatso. Gyatso refuses to let the council take Aang away. But Aang panics, caught between destiny and losing the only person he trusts. That night, a huge storm hits. Aang and Appa fly away, tears in Aang's eyes. Lightning cracks over the sea. A massive wave knocks them out of the sky. Aang, desperate, enters the Avatar state and creates a sphere of air and ice around them, freezing them for 100 years. Katara listens in heartbreak as Aang finishes the story. She tells him running away was a mistake, but it doesn't make the war his fault. Aang still doesn't fully believe her. Meanwhile, The Fire Navy crew complains again, saying Zuko is putting them in danger. Iroh finally tells them the truth. Flashback 4. Zuko's Agni Kai. Young Zuko steps into the Agni Kai arena, thinking he will fight the general he insulted. But then he sees his true opponent, Fire Lord Ozai. Shock floods Zuko's face. Iroh whispers, begging him not to fight. Zuko kneels, refusing to strike his own father. Ozai calls him weak. Zuko begs for forgiveness. Ozai blasts him with fire, burning the left side of his face. That day, Zuko's banishment and obsession with honor began. As the storm hits full force, the fisherman's boat capsizes. Aang and Katara rush into action. Appa dives into the water. Aang swims through the waves, and together they save the fisherman and his wife. During the rescue, Aang faces the same terror he felt a century ago, but this time, he chooses to act bravely instead of running. On Zuko's ship, lightning strikes toward the main mast. Iroh steps forward and uses lightning redirection, a technique incredibly rare, to save everyone. Even the angry crew is shocked into respect. The storm ends. The rescued fisherman wakes and realizes Aang saved his life, finally appreciating the Avatar. Aang smiles shyly when the man thanks him. High on the cliffs, Zuko watches the calm ocean. Iroh joins him quietly. No words are exchanged. But Zuko's face softens, just a fraction, showing conflict beneath his hardened exterior. The episode closes with Aang and Zuko standing under the same sky, each shaped by trauma, both traveling toward destinies that will eventually collide. Book 1, Episode 13. The Blue Spirit. Episode 13 begins at a Fire Nation outpost deep in the Earth Kingdom, where a stoic and highly disciplined commander named Admiral Zhao receives a report. The Avatar has been sighted near the Earth Kingdom forests. Zhao immediately takes control, determined to capture Aang before Prince Zuko does. He orders elite archers, the Yuyan archers, famous for hitting any target from any distance, to join the hunt. Meanwhile, Team Avatar settles in an abandoned forest ruin. Aang, restless and anxious about mastering all 4 elements before the end of summer, decides to gather medicine for a feverish Sokka and an exhausted Katara, both sick from the previous storm. Katara weakly gives Aang her mother's necklace for comfort as he heads out. As Aang travels through the forest, he is ambushed. A single Yuyan archer fires a precision shot, pinning Aang's staff to a tree. Aang tries to escape using airbending agility, but more archers surround him. Their speed and accuracy overwhelm him, and one fires a shot that grazes his leg. They finally capture him with a net. Aang is taken unconscious to Zhao's heavily guarded fortress. Inside the fortress, Aang wakes in a metal cell with heavy restraints. Zhao walks in triumphantly, taunting him, saying the Avatar being alive changes everything for the Fire Nation. Zhao reveals he has doubled security and brought extra soldiers. Aang will not escape. Back at camp, Katara and Sokka are too weak to move. Momo attempts to bring them water and supplies, but brings random items instead: boots, garbage, and even live creatures. Katara tries calling for Aang, but her voice is too weak. The camp feels lonely and vulnerable. That night, at Zhao's fortress, a mysterious masked figure in black, wearing a blue demon mask, silently infiltrates the compound. He moves with precision and skill, taking down guards using stealth rather than bending. This is the Blue Spirit. As Zhao receives a message confirming more reinforcements, the Blue Spirit slips across rooftops, disabling guards with dual swords. He leaps into the courtyard, cutting Aang's chains and signaling him to follow. Aang is confused but has no choice. The fortress erupts into chaos. Soldiers swarm the hallways. The Blue Spirit blocks attacks with swordsmanship so precise even Zhao's elite soldiers struggle. Aang uses airbending to create openings. Together, they form a near-perfect escape team, silent, fast, and coordinated. At the outer wall, Zhao arrives with the Yuyan archers. One archer fires a shot, piercing the air inches from Aang's head, but Zhao orders them not to harm the masked rescuer. Zhao wants him alive. When the archers hesitate, Zhao gives the order to shoot the Avatar instead. The Blue Spirit grabs Aang, and they climb over the high wall. Outside the fortress, a final archer shoots and grazes the Blue Spirit's leg, causing him to stumble. Zhao orders a full strike. Aang, recognizing his rescuer is hurt, uses air bending to leap them into the nearby forest. They flee until they reach a clearing where frogs croak near a swamp. Frogs Aang needs as medicine for his sick friends. When the blue spirit collapses from the arrow wound, Aang kneels beside him and lifts the mask. The reveal is shocking. It's Prince Zuko. Aang stares in silence, processing everything. The Fire Prince, his enemy, risked his life to rescue him, not out of kindness, but because Zuko wants to capture the Avatar himself, not let Zhao claim the glory. Despite knowing this, Aang gently tells the unconscious prince's story from his childhood, about a boy he used to play with from the Fire Nation. Aang wonders out loud if they could have been friends in another life, in another time. Aang almost stays, but when he senses soldiers approaching, he whispers goodbye and escapes with the medicine frogs. Zuko wakes up under the moonlight, realizing Aang spared him and left him unharmed. His face shifts from confusion to simmering frustration. He looks toward the forest, conflicted. At camp, Aang returns with the frog medicine. Sokka and Katara suck on the frogs as instructed and immediately feel relief. Aang sits quietly, thinking about Zuko, about the war, and about the blurred lines between friend and enemy. The episode ends with Zuko in his ship, staring into a candle flame. Aang, from afar, sits watching the stars. Two destinies, intertwined, but still divided by war. Book 1, Episode 14. The Fortune Teller. The morning sun rose gently over the mountains, casting golden light across the forest where Aang, Katara, and Sokka traveled. The air was warm, peaceful. Finally, a day without danger. Aang glided above the trees on his staff, while Sokka trudged behind, muttering complaints about everything from walking to the weather. Their calm morning was suddenly interrupted by a cry for help. A huge, hulking platypus bear towered over a young man who clung to a tree for dear life. Before Aang could respond, Sokka charged ahead with false confidence, only to be immediately swatted into a bush. Katara tried to soothe the beast with kind words, but it lunged at her too. Aang finally stepped in, using airbending to create a gentle gust that pushed the creature back without harming it. The platypus bear blinked, confused, and then wandered away into the forest. The young man climbed down, brushing himself off. "You saved my life," he exclaimed. "Well, actually, Aunt Wu predicted it would be saved today, and she's never wrong." Aang and Katara exchanged a curious look. Moments later, the trio found themselves walking toward Aunt Wu's village, a cozy settlement nestled in the mountains. Colorful lanterns hung between rooftops, and villagers walked around with cheerful confidence, as if nothing bad could ever happen. And they all said the same thing. "Don't worry. Aunt Wu predicted it." Inside Aunt Wu's home, incense filled the air. The fortune teller was calm and wise, with warm eyes that read people deeper than they expected. Aunt Wu told Katara she would have a great romance in her future. Katara's eyes lit up, Aang noticed, and immediately started imagining himself striking heroic poses. To Sokka, Aunt Wu predicted, "You will be involved in an important battle." Sokka sighed. "Yeah, that sounds vague." And finally, Aang sat before her. Aunt Wu studied his future carefully. Her eyes widened slightly. "You will have a great destiny," she said. Aang waited for more, but she simply smiled. In the village, Aang tried to impress Katara, jumping off rooftops, dancing in front of her, air-bending flowers into fancy shapes, but Katara barely noticed. Instead, she asked dozens of questions about her predicted romance, who it would be, when it would happen, what he would look like. Aang sank a little with every mention. Meanwhile, Sokka wandered the streets shaking his head. "Predictions aren't real," he muttered, watching villagers make every decision based on Aunt Wu's words. When he tried to convince them to think for themselves, they simply smiled and said, "Aunt Wu already told us not to worry." But everything changed when the village's cloud reader, an elderly man named Meng, announced his daily weather report. He pointed to the sky, confident as ever, declaring, "According to cloud shapes, there will be no volcanic eruption this year." Aang and Katara thanked him politely, but Sokka rolled his eyes and marched away. Later that afternoon, Aang and Katara climbed the mountain trail, watching clouds drift over the crater of a massive volcano. The sky was peaceful until Katara gasped. The clouds shifted, revealing an unmistakable sign: danger. The volcano was going to erupt. They raced back to the village, breathless, shouting warnings. Villagers dismissed it at first, relying on Aunt Wu's previous reading. But when Aang showed the cloud patterns to Aunt Wu herself, the fortune-teller's face fell. She confirmed the truth. The eruption was near. Panic swept through the village. Fireballs of molten rock began bursting from the volcano's rim. The ground trembled. Aang immediately leapt into action, blasting boulders aside with airbending. Sokka organized villagers to evacuate. Katara used waterbending to extinguish falling debris. But it wasn't enough. The volcano roared to life, sending a wave of lava down the mountainside. Aang flew upward into the storm of fire, using powerful airbending to shift the volcanic clouds. Katara bent streams of water to cool and slow the lava's advance. Villagers grabbed buckets, forming a long chain of water from the river. Still, the lava surged forward. In desperation, Aang summoned a massive cyclone of wind, pushing the flow back. Katara guided water upward, turning the swirling steam and flame into a rising wall that redirected the lava away from the homes. Finally, the village was safe. Exhausted but relieved, the villagers cheered and thanked Aunt Wu, believing her prediction still guided them. Sokka groaned loudly. It wasn't a prediction. It was science. Cloud shapes. Lava. We literally, never mind. As the sun set, Aunt Wu pulled Aang aside. She told him that destinies can guide people, but choices are what shape them. Aang walked toward Katara with renewed confidence, only to find her once again excitedly asking Aunt Wu more questions about her love life. Aang sighed but smiled. Their journey together was far from over. That night, their campfire flickered warmly. Sokka complained about the villagers' blind faith. Katara hummed softly, thinking about her future romance. Aang lay back in the grass, staring at the stars, hopeful that maybe, just maybe, the destiny Aunt Wu spoke of was already unfolding. Book 1, Episode 15. Bateau of the Water Tribe. The ocean breeze carried a salty chill as Aang, Katara, and Sokka traveled along a quiet coastal road. Waves crashed rhythmically against the rocky shore below, but Sokka felt something deeper stirring within him. The sea always reminded him of home, of the tribe he left behind, of warriors, of his father. Suddenly, Appa slowed, sniffing the air. Aang pointed ahead. A small smoke trail curled up from a clearing near the coastline. They approached cautiously, and then Sokka froze. There, kneeling by a canoe and repairing its wooden ribs, was a broad-shouldered water tribe warrior, blue war paint across his face, and a familiar wolf-tail hairstyle. Sokka whispered, voice trembling, Bateau. Bateau of the water tribe, one of Chief Hakoda's closest friends, turned with a warm smile. Sokka, Katara, you've grown. Katara rushed into a tight embrace. Sokka stood stunned for a moment before wrapping Bateau in the hug he had needed for years. Aang watched from behind, smiling, until he noticed Sokka's eyes glistening with a longing he didn't understand. Inside Bateau's temporary camp, the warriors shared dried fish and told stories of Sokka's father. How Hakoda led their warriors bravely into the war, how he always spoke proudly of his children, and how they were still fighting somewhere in the Earth Kingdom. Every word seemed to fill Sokka with life. He sat taller, leaned closer, and listened as if each story reconnected him to the people he missed the most. Aang felt a quiet sting of fear. Katara and Sokka were hearing things he couldn't relate to, things that might pull them away from him. As Bateau prepared healing salve for a recent injury, a courier arrived unexpectedly. He bowed respectfully and handed Bateau a sealed map, Hakoda's location. Bateau smiled, then paused. This is meant for your father's warriors only, he said gently. I cannot give it to you. Sokka and Katara lowered their heads. Aang stepped back, heart sinking. If they saw their father again, would they still need him? When everyone stepped outside, Aang remained in the tent. The map sat on the table, glowing faintly in the firelight. Aang's fingers hovered over it. His heart pounded. If they saw this, they would leave him. He panicked. He slid the map into his shirt and stepped outside, acting normal as guilt twisted inside him. Later, Bateau challenged Sokka to the traditional ice dodge trial, a ritual that young water tribe warriors complete to prove themselves. Sokka accepted eagerly, steering a canoe through jagged rock spires while Katara waterbent to guide its direction. Aang joined too, trying to prove he belonged, trying to prove he mattered. Sokka's leadership was flawless. Katara's bending was sharp. Aang tried his best to help, but he wasn't from the tribe. He wasn't part of their memories. He couldn't fill that gap. When they passed the test, Bateau proudly marked Sokka's forehead with blue war paint, the mark of a true warrior. Aang swallowed hard, feeling invisible. But everything shattered when Bateau revealed something unexpected. Your father's location will be revealed soon, when the courier returns. Sokka and Katara gasped. Aang froze. And then Bateau added, we all await the message. Aang's guilt erupted. Unable to hide it any longer, he confessed. He pulled out the map. I didn't want you to leave me. Silence cracked through the camp. Sokka stepped forward, betrayal heavy in his voice. You kept this from us? You hid our father from us. Katara's expression softened, but her disappointment was clear. Aang's eyes filled with tears. He tried to explain, but nothing could excuse what he had done. Before emotions could settle, a shadow swept across the clearing. A shuriken embedded itself in a tree, sharp, precise. A familiar voice echoed. Prince Zuko sends his warmest regards. The assassin herself, June, the merciless bounty hunter, emerged from the darkness atop her enormous shirshu, a reptilian beast with razor claws and a tongue that paralyzed on contact. She cracked her whip, eyes locked on Aang. The shirshu sniffed the air, tracking sweat, fear, and scent like a living radar. It lunged. The group scattered. Sokka leapt forward with his boomerang. Katara summoned ice spikes. Bateau fought with water tribe precision. Aang darted through the trees, dodging the creature's paralyzing tongue. But June's beast was relentless. Sokka was hit, collapsed instantly. Bateau next slammed into a boulder. Katara was cornered when the shirshu struck her as well. Aang, now alone, flew desperately through the courtyard of the abandoned monastery where the battle had moved. Zuko joined the fight, swords drawn, fire swirling. Aang twirled his staff, sending gusts of wind to keep the shirshu back, but the beast was too fast. He dodged, flipped, slid, and rolled as June and Zuko closed in. Then Aang noticed the perfume stall from earlier, the bottles still fragrant and strong. Aang blasted all the perfume into the air. The shirshu roared, overwhelmed by the explosion of scent hitting all at once. Unable to pinpoint Aang, it lunged blindly and struck June, paralyzing her instantly. Then it swung again, hitting Zuko. They both collapsed in a heap. The fight was over. Aang hurried back to Katara and Sokka as the paralysis wore off. He apologized again, his voice shaking, admitting his fear of losing them. Katara's eyes softened. Aang, we're your family too. But families trust each other. Sokka placed a hand on his shoulder. You're stuck with us, little man. Don't scare us like that again. Aang smiled softly, relieved. They chose not to follow the map, believing they would meet their father when the time was right. For now, they stayed together. As they left the coastline behind, the waves washed quietly along the shore, carrying with them a mix of old memories and new beginnings. If you love this story and more storytelling content, do well to like, share, and subscribe. See you on our next video.